So there's been some chatter about the 3-1 atlas,
Yeah.
3-eye atlas,
Mm-hmm.
about potentials that could involve it.
There's a lot of things that could happen. There's a lot of what ifs.
There are. But there was something that I heard said that it could even break apart or destroy the demiurge, and therefore return.
What if it is in fact a frequency enhancer?
That would be extraordinary and
it would be
wild.
Extraordinary, but it seems to be extraordinary just in its inception, in the dynamics of its discovery, the way it is coming in at the same plane as the planets operate. That if you were going to create a scientific mission, you would have it go in the direction that it's going in, and in the dynamic that it's going in order to be able to establish it in orbit within this solar system. So, and it does. There are any number of calculations that have been made about it now, that there is a certain maneuver that could take place that could put the object in orbit around the sun at a certain level away from the sun that allows it to just continue in orbit forever around the sun. And what if this is in fact some sort of device that is intended, that comes from the dynamic of the monad, within the dynamic of knowing, within the dynamic of the raising of consciousness, this whole dynamic of all of this, they've been, the demiurge has been utilizing the dynamics of fear in order to keep you all under control. So what happens if that you realize that all of that fear, all of that dynamic of energy is really in fact just a big old lie, and you are all one with all, and you begin to have a cognizant realization of that dynamic. And the more you move into it, you don't have that much longer to wait. We're not going to again, as we said to a little while ago before, why would we deprive you of the adventure of discovery? Because, right now especially, you need to be on the balls of your feet. You need to be paying attention to what the reflections of your reality are.
So,
especially coming up into the winter solstice.
Certainly.
Well, more certainly than that, there are certain, the 3-eye atlas achieves a certain point closest to the Earth on the 19th of December.
December, right at the solstice time.
Right at the solstice.
All right, so in navigating and on the balls of our feet, all the changes going on, a lot this year you've been talking about divine intention, and it seems to be tied to, for each of us,
well, don't you see it's everywhere? Isn't divine intention everywhere? Now, are we talking about the monad's divine intention, or are we talking about the demiurge's?
The monads.
Intention. So if we're looking at the monads, that's a whole dynamic that's beyond the, what shall we say, the control system of the demiurge. And so if you realize that a dynamic of, another species coming in that has perhaps a more advanced awareness, a more advanced understanding of spirit, of the monad, of the energy in that sort of way, and they realize, they say to you in the dynamics of their presence, it becomes apparent that all that the demiurge has presented over all of these many centuries has been, various layers of horse hockey. And that was G-rated. But, in order to be, because You know, and that means that all of a sudden, all of the things that you have believed about God and about religion and about control and about moral behavior, what's moral and what's not, all of that suddenly goes out the window. And then who are you going to be?
Authentic.
Some of you
Confused.
will, some of you
Scared.
will, but many of you will be running as quickly as you can.
No, I can see that. Well, so in understanding that there's a movement of a divine intention, you've spoken to us about using
Yeah, but there is no apocalypse. You do understand that, right? The whole dynamic of apocalyptic thinking is strictly demiurge.
Yes. It's a control mechanism.
Yeah, but it keeps you in fear.
But,
Well, just like the three-eye atlas coming in the way that it is, you know, the physical reality, where it's the first thing that they do is many will come together in order to try to stir up fear. Well, you know, a lot of people will say, well, that's just for clicks. Well, yeah, it's for clicks, but that's a whole dynamic of a movement of energy that has effect. Thought, word, feeling.
all right. So in the midst of that then confusion, even what you're presenting is that the three-eye atlas, considering that it could have that profound effect on destroying the
Could have.
demiurge.
It's just something that you know, it's one of the many effects that it could have that many of you have not considered because you don't think about things in that sort of way.
And yet that could present its own level of fear. So
It could, unless you realize that you know, you are the same being that you are going to be after you die. You know, that's the you is you, that spark of the divine, that dynamic when you close your eyes and you slow everything down and you just take a few minutes to observe and you watch the reflections of your world without judgment, without reaction, emotional reaction. You use your objectivity, you use your discernment, you try to ascertain the ironic humor of the universe, because there's peals of laughter that are occurring right now. You know, there are many in your world that are responding in very strange ways, not the least of which are your leaders. And watch them over the next couple of weeks. They're going to be fun to watch.
well, what I was getting to was that we still have that moral compass within us.
Sure. You're born with it. You're born with it. It's something that needs to be encouraged. You know, and when you come into an incarnation, the reality that you exist in right now keeps you ignorant for as long as possible. Because as long as you are ignorant, you can be scared, you can be frightened, you can be, you know, fear can be instilled in you and you can be controlled through the dynamics of fear. If you realize the true nature of the supreme consciousness, there is no dark, there is no light, there is all. There is all. There is no judgment. You know, one of these days we'll get into the dynamics of sexuality and talk about what your real nature is. But, you know, that's a whole other thing, and we probably couldn't do it over YouTube. So,
No, that'll be private. So I tend to think that the moral compass is somehow more like the monad, but even that's false, isn't it?
well, it's the understanding of all. It's the willingness to be able to accept it all. if you know that there's a dark and you know there's a light, and that added consciousness, added movement, added dynamics of complexity come from claiming the light, not necessarily the dark.
So a movement to claim the light brings more complexity, which allows the monad to expand.
And also, you cannot have that expansion of the light if you do not have the dark. That's what most of you in your world don't realize.